stressed out over viruses or protests or riots or everything is on top of our regular stress
Yeah.
with family, career, kids, neighbors, pets. I don't know. Um, it says meetings now streaming live on YouTube, so that's promising. Anyhow, so everybody is stressed out. And on top of that, we're experiencing a lot of burnout where people are just at the end of their ropes. And I've been feeling this. I think Brenda might be feeling it a little bit. And I noticed I run this great Facebook group, Evil HR Lady, which you're all welcome to join. Um, and I've been running the group for about 3 years. Great group. In 3 years' time, I've had to delete the random post where someone tries to sell their essential oils or something. But otherwise, it's just been a really helpful HR group. In the past 2 weeks, I've had to ban, I've had to delete, I've had to stop comments. I've had to post, a hey, everybody, calm down, remember who you are and act accordingly. Um, and the thing is that these aren't like trolls coming in. These are people that I know that have been posting for the past 3 years and have been polite and wonderful for the past 3 years. And suddenly everyone is letting the stress get to them. So instead of saying, like, oh, that's interesting, we do it this way, it's like, your idea was the stupidest thing ever. And they're not normally like that. And I'm sure that this is a result of everybody feeling really burned out.
Yep, they are. And I think there's a couple of reasons why. I mean, well, I think we kind of know what the reasons why really are. Um, and the biggest one is we haven't been in our normal environments for a while. I mean, all feeling it. We're all feeling it because we've been disconnected and disjointed, and we've been dealing with a lot of fear and anxiety and not knowing what's going on, and everything starts changing at the last minute. We learn something new about something, and all of a sudden it's like that's different, and you're just like, oh my gosh, when is this just gonna stop?
That's the thing is, and that's part of the problem. Like, you can endure just about anything when you know when it's going to end.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm on this hike, it's really hard, my knees are killing me, and I'm out of breath, but I know that in 2 more miles I will be done. And so you can do it. But right now it's like, it's really hard, and it might be 2 more miles, it might be 10 more miles, it might be 20. I don't know. No one knows. And that makes it so much harder because we can't judge. We can't say, okay, this is how far I will go today, and then I will go this far tomorrow. We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And for HR people, especially, I say that because I assume that we have the hardest deal, but we're the ones that are making the policies and that are dealing with all of these changes. And it's just overwhelming. It's overwhelming. And it's almost impossible to keep up.
It is. And it's uh, so when I would love for you to kick off the subject, because in the direction that we were talking about, because I don't want to steal your thunder.
It was your
But
thunder that I stole.
well, that's all right. Go ahead. I don't want to steal your thunder.
Okay, so this is Brenda not stealing my thunder that I stole from her.
Right.
Um,
At our
yes,
first attempt.
when we were talking about this, she mentioned a great idea, which is when everyone gets stressed out, you need to take a break and do something fun as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually took her advice from yesterday. And on my stressed out Facebook page, I posted funny um, stock photos of your career done wrong. And they have some hilarious pictures of, scientists pouring things without taking the top off the tube. And my favorite, the gynecologist sitting at the bottom of the bed, giving the patient a thumbs up, and somebody else, what happens when your gynecologist gives you a thumbs down? And I thought that was a really good question. And people started sharing some and with their different careers. And one of the women that posts there often, she's actually a pharmacist, and she posted a stock photo of a pharmacist with all of the names of the medicines blurred out in the back. And she's like, this is what I love, is trying to figure out what's in every bottle. It did lighten up the mood.
Right.
And I think it kind of made everybody step back a little bit and be like, ha ha ha, this is funny. And I'm hoping that I won't have any problems going forward. I don't really anticipate having problems going forward because, as I said, it's a really good group. It's just that everybody got stressed out. And this is something that we all need to do, is a little bit of team building at this point. And I'm generally a proponent of teams can work well without doing fun activities, but when things aren't going well, and everything in everybody's personal lives aren't going well as real, because it's not like you can leave work and go home to normal. There's no normal. Right. You do need to take a little bit of a team building break.
Yeah. So team building is a really important function. It's, companies and groups that do team building, it doesn't have to be, something elaborate every month, but it's something that keeps everybody unified. It's a real strength builder when it comes to our emotional intelligence, because people get a chance to know who the other people are in their group outside of their work habits. And so it helps people assess their character, it helps people, get a little bit more deeper understanding of who it is that they're actually working for. And then, not to mention, when you get through something difficult and you guys are continuously unified, that tends to carry you a long way. So like Suzanne mentioned that she's got a group that she manages. I do too. It's called the Next Gen Women in HR. It's on Facebook. And it's, I just, a couple of weeks ago, I was just wiped out. I mean, like many of you guys, I've been at home working too. Very little contact with, people that I know and love. And I just decided, it's like, oh my gosh, I just need some midday social time. I need to like not crank out so much work, which I do. And I just decided to let's do a virtual brown bag lunch. And we had about 5 or 6 people on, and we had so much fun. It was like 4 or 6 people. I can't remember exactly, but we didn't talk about anything HR. We did it at 1:00 in the afternoon so that people on the West Coast could join us, and they had coffee at 10. And it was just great. I mean, it was just wonderful. So we've agreed that we're going to actually do that on a monthly basis now. But, that's the thing, is that you mentioned it earlier. So I'm going to steal your thunder, because you were going to talk about this, but you were looking at the wrong column on your list today. Anyway, but part of it is that people need to return to work, and work is a great distraction from life. It really is. I mean, work has a tendency to create its own issues and, gets us bogged down. But now we're kind of like in this reversal. So usually people use life to distract themselves from work. And right now we need work to distract ourselves from life, because we've got more life coming at us than we know what to do with sometimes. And we're not used to it. But, getting people back to work, getting those teams unified again, making people feel like they're accomplishing something. Now, that's not to say that we don't have companies that are doing it, because we do. But, humans aren't meant to be alone. We're collective beings. And so we do like being around one another.
We do like being around one another. And I think one of the things that has built towards this burnout as well is if you're normally working in the office and now you've been working at home, that also makes for a change that isn't easy. No. And despite my love of working at home, it's much more difficult to build a team when you're not seeing each other, because you stop seeing each other as human.
Yeah.
And just more like, this is a bot, that I send this report to them and they send me feedback, and it becomes this nameless, faceless kind of a thing. And you really need to understand that this is a human on the other side.
Right.
And that sometimes it's really good from a work perspective to not work and to chat with someone. Those water cooler conversations, they're not a waste of time. I mean, they can be if that's all
They
that
can
you
be.
do. And everybody in HR has dealt with someone who thinks it's their role in life to stand at the water cooler and talk with everybody. But without those conversations, you can forget that this is a real human that has problems and feelings and family and pets and all of these things. And it can become easy just to be short with them or critical. And you see that on Twitter, where people will say horrible, horrible things to people that they don't know, and they wouldn't say it to that person's face. And sometimes when we're all telecommuting, that same dynamic can happen. And this is some place where HR can really step in and work with people to make that not happen, and to make sure that that people know that there are people. And this is something I've been working with HR Acuity on. They run employee relations software, and I've been talking a lot with them about how does employee relations work when you're not with the people. And it becomes a very different way of operating. But I think it's also very critical for HR to step in with that role and maybe do the coffee break. And that's something that we all say, oh, well, I don't have time for that. The problem is you don't have time not to do that.
Right. Exactly. And and a lot of this leads into not only what you can do to the team, but individuals also need to better understand how they can take care of themselves as well. And that's going to be a really big piece of it. Individuals have to take care of themselves at the base level in order to be effective in any way. I know, I'm doing that very same thing. And matter of fact, I've been working on kind of like a me project since the middle of April. And just the couple of things that I've done have started to make a tremendous difference in my life. And it's reduced, pain from sitting down so much that I'm not used to doing. And it's replaced the pain from driving in my car all the time, which I wasn't, to now sitting down. So, it makes a difference. You just got to find ways to do something for you, because if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. And that's a very important thing in HR, is that our jobs are not about taking care of the things that we need to take care of. Our jobs are taking care of everybody else first. So as a professional, our needs are not primary. Our needs are actually secondary. Everybody else's needs is primary. And so if you are out of alignment, or if you're out of whack, or you're not feeling yourself, or you're not feeling right, or you're not well, it's going to make it very difficult for you to take care of everybody else, literally at lightning speed sometimes.
And that is something that HR professionals tend to do, is we give and we give and we give and we give and we give until we crack. And a lot of HR professionals are women. It's highly female, and women have a tendency to do that too. So all together, we can really get to that point where we're burned out. And then when we are completely burned out, we can't help anybody at all.
Right.
And this is something that I have to try to remind myself to step back and take a break. And I'm very proud of me. I went and got a massage this morning, and I haven't had one since the shutdown, because of course I couldn't do one when things were shut down. And then when things opened here in Switzerland, I didn't, because it's super expensive here in Switzerland. And the place I go to is across the border in Germany. And the border opened last week. And I was like, I'm finally going to do this. And I went, and it was amazing to spend this hour just brain off,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it's a pretty great feeling when you can do it. Here's something else too. 50-hour work weeks don't work. 50, 60, 70-hour work weeks don't work. In the last position that I held, I actually was working 80 hours a week. That's 2 full-time jobs.
That's too much.
80 hours a week. Yes. And you just lose sense of everything. 50-hour work weeks are not as productive as having a focused, intentional 40 to 45. Now, some people, you're probably like falling off your chair right now going, oh my gosh, but I'll never get anything done. Well, it's not about time management, to be honest with you, especially in the field of HR. That's not what it's about for us. It's about task management, because our time, yeah, there is no way that we can successfully do time management the way everybody teaches it, because we have more of the unknown coming at us than we do the ability to work with the known. So we always have to address the unknown. And that's that phone call. Employee needs help. That's the email. I got an employee who's being problematic. It's somebody walking into your office going, hey, guess what? We just realized that we didn't file any of our required W-2 tax form reportings and 941s for the year. And now it's a priority, right? So all of those things. And this is like all real stuff too. Huh?
I said a generic example that's never happened to you.
Well, that last one never happened to me, but I've had other things that people say, hey, guess what? We're missing something. And all of a sudden it's changed. But that's the thing, is like, that's what I'm saying, is that those are the types of things that come flying at us when we've got all this regulatory compliance stuff that we have to manage. We're trying to move an agenda forward. And that's, I would say, a project manager probably has as many disruptions, but because the project manager typically is not dealing with the individuals and the outcome that impacts individuals directly, like their staff and their business, that leads to the impact of the company. I think they can probably get a pretty good sense of what it is that we're going through, but nonetheless, that's just the way it is. And so that's why it's so vital. It's so vital for people to figure out how to take care of themselves, to figure out how do you accomplish what you need to accomplish within the work structure, not taking too many things on. I have a planner. I have a task planner that I'm teaching my group on how to use. And in doing that, I make it okay to have to move stuff over to the right, but I don't overschedule my day. I look at what's actually doable. And if whatever needs to be done doesn't align with the trajectory of moving forward and the objectives, it doesn't go on that planner. If it's not going to produce something, it doesn't go on. It's as simple as that. So, that helps me. I do work 50-hour weeks, but I'm building a business at the same time. But I also, my compromise is that I'll cram in, several 12-hour days, but I skip out early on Fridays. Fridays are so I actually work on having a 3-day weekend. Now that's not always doable, but it's my compromise to burning myself out.
And I think that that's really important, because we can work hard. It's not work necessarily that
right
kills us, but it's not balancing those things. And that the whole concept of HR is always putting out fires and answering things and all of that, that's what happens when life is good and normal. And then right now, when we have this corona crisis thrown at us, anybody that's trying to do policy or make plans, I mean, it's changing all of the time. Everything changes, and it's hard to keep straight. What's legal, what's recommended, what's required. And if you are operating across more than one state, hold on to your hats. I mean, it's just this constant thing. And then you're dealing with employees that some can't wait to come back, some don't want to come back. Um, just everything.
Right.
And you've got to deal with the regulations, and you've got to deal with the ever changing guidance from the CDC, and you've got to deal with the human side of things, because we're still human resources. And the EEOC just released a statement that it's not an ADA violation to say to someone, you have to come into work, even though your child or your spouse or whatever is high risk. That's not discriminating against someone on the basis of associating with a disability. And so that's new today, or probably yesterday, but I read it today. So like, now we have a little bit more guidance, but now how do we implement that? Because when we're looking at bringing people back, or who can work at home, um, or whatever, now we have this new thing coming in, and different states are having different rules. Ohio just said if you're over 65, you can stay on unemployment even if your company wants to bring you back. And my gut reaction is, wait, that's age discrimination, but it's not you doing it, it's the government doing it. And
Yep.
so all of those fundamentals that we learned are now being put to the test, and it can be overwhelming for us to deal with all of these change, all this change. And then we still have to deal with the sexual harassment, and the employee that is a poor performer, and the person that lost the forms, and what happened to all the I-9s. And oh, by the way, we can do I-9s over video now, yay. But only temporarily, but it was extended till when? I don't know. They probably said until when, but who really knows how long that will go. It's so hard to keep up. No wonder we're all stressed out.
Yeah. And then, not to mention, it's an election year. And
Oh.
so we're starting to now go down that path of, and it is every election year, it is increasingly more contentious in the environment. Our national condition is continuously, every election year, getting more and more contentious, especially at the presidential level. And you know we're not here to talk about politics, that's not what we do, but we can talk about the environment. And when you've got people who are, I mean, this nation is horrifically divided, there's very little middle ground. And so that carries into workplace conversations that aren't necessarily productive. It carries into how people perceive other individuals when those discussions start to happen. That's when verbal arguments come into place, and everybody's biases kick in full force because they are completely fueled by everybody's emotions. So, having to work with people to keep that out when it is constantly being thrown in their face by the media, that's hard.
It's
That is
really
very difficult.
it's really hard, and that's something that destroys relationships too,
Breaks
and
teams down.
it breaks teams down. And this is something that I have seen happen over and over again, is that you have a team, they're cohesive, everything is good, somebody spouts some political thing, and it doesn't matter which side, and they do it with the idea that everyone agrees with them naturally because they're smart, right? So only all smart people agree with me, right? This is generally a concept that people have. And invariably, someone else in the group will agree. And then that leaves everybody else thinking, am I the only one that disagrees? And then that person starts to pull back. They don't want to speak up because those people will now think they're dumb, and or worse. I mean, dumb is the nicest of things that political opponents think of each other right now. And it can really divide. Somehow we've lost that ability to talk about policies separately from who people are as individuals. And it's really can have an impact on your workplace. And I'm not a fan of banning all sorts of stuff, but I am kind of a fan of like political conversation, leave it at home, because
Yeah,
it
I
can be
agree.
so divisive.
Yeah,
And it
it is
destroys.
divisive. Yeah, and everybody wants to be heard. Um, I remember in the after the first election in the Obama administration, everybody in my team, well, and say about that, 70, about 50% of my team that I worked with, and I had about 50 people in this one office that we were in that day. We had about half of that, and half of them were loud, obnoxious about it. Not everybody agreed with them. And but the thing was is that they were interrupting what we were doing because they were celebrating at work. And unfortunately, the AVP at the time didn't stifle it. And so it went on for about an hour. And we're trying to have phone calls with with clients, and all of a sudden you hear all of this going on in the background, and it's inappropriate. It's just business still has to go on so that way we can afford to, make sure that payroll is met. But at the same time, what if one of those customers on the phone heard that and didn't agree? And now we lost a customer because of that bias. So it's very real.
And right now, the political environment is very much, some people are shouting, if you don't say that you follow this particular thing, then I don't want to do business with you. And some businesses are like, I really just, I'm trying to think of an example that doesn't actually, I just make furniture, it's not left wing, it's not right wing, it's just tables, and there's no need to be political. There's no reason. Now, there's a reason that they need to follow all laws and treat everybody nicely. We don't discriminate and all of that, but they don't need to support a political platform to be a successful business. And you're right, there are people that will be offended on whichever side. There's not like, here is the side where everybody agrees. There's not one of those. And if you're trying to make furniture, do you want two different lines, your liberal line, your conservative line? What would that even look like?
Can you imagine? Can you imagine the teleprompter on the customer service? If you're a Democrat, press 1. If you're a Republican, press 2. If you really don't care, hang on the line and someone will be right with you. I mean, can you imagine that? That's just not going to happen. But
and it doesn't need to happen either. And
no, it doesn't need to happen.
It can be so divisive.
It is very divisive. And when we have, we're also in a nation in crisis with, and I'm not saying that this is not right, but we are a nation of crisis over a very sensitive topic to a lot of individuals, and that carries into the workforce as well. And so how you get beyond these things is actually working to nurture your culture. You have to nurture your culture. Culture is either, if you don't manage it, it will manage itself, and likely it will become toxic. If you manage the culture into what it is that you envision for the company, and it is work, then when these massive things come up that stress employees out, that contribute to, like we're talking, this is an HR show, right? It contributes to your HR team and your managers and your leadership of feeling the extra pressure of having to deal with this. When you nurture the culture, you not that you won't ever have to deal with these things, you just won't have to deal with them at the intensity that a lot of people have been experiencing simply because the culture has been defined. It's not creepy, it's not scary, or however you define it.
And I think that defining it is really important. And that's what when I talked about my HR group kind of going off the deep end, is that's what one of the things I did was a cultural reset. I posted specifically like, this is what we do here, and I'm not gonna let it go. And I said, this is an HR page, not a political one. Not everyone here shares your political beliefs, and that's okay. If you share something political, you need an explanation of how this relates to HR. Comments should remain focused on how it affects business.
Yes.
And I was very, very clear. These are the boundaries, okay? And there is a billion other web pages out there if you want to argue politics. This is not the place for that. And that's the same thing as the workplace. There's a million other places that you can go that you can argue politics, but not here. Not here.
We don't pay you to argue politics.
Right. And another thing that I added is name calling will result in a banning. You are free to disagree with ideas, but attacking another member here is out of the question. This is not Reddit. This is not Twitter. This is my page. And if you want to have HR people who call people names page, you do that. You go ahead and launch your own, but don't do it here. So we did this little cultural reset. And some of those things, when I launched the page, I launched it in 2017, which was not a political year, not an election year. I didn't even think about that as an issue. Of course, that's not going to come up. That's not something I need to deal with, but now it is. And so I've dealt with it and said, this is our culture. This is not what we do here. And so far, so good. I mean, it's been like 3 days.
Well,
and keeping an eye on it.
Yeah. And one of the things, here's a little secret. Here's something that can help everybody get through burnout. And that is exercising some form of appreciation.
I thought you were going to tell me to exercise and I was going to hang up on you.
No. So some form of appreciation. It's weightless. There you go, Suzanne. It's a weightless repetition. And it changes the chemistry in your brain. I'm going to tell you a little secret that I did. This was actually really funny. I was telling a friend of mine this the other day. Years ago, when I was in big box retail, I had a group of girls that did not work well with the store manager, and he didn't work well with them. And I came in one day and I was over it. I mean, I was just, every day I come in hearing about how they're a pain in the butt and how he's such a jerk. And I just said, we're going to deal with this right now. We're all going to have a good day. I said, come with me. And he's like, I feel like, move it. And so we went to the back, and in the back of the area where we were at, the whole wall was lined with mirrors. That was just the design of the venue. And so I said, okay, everybody put your work stuff away. And I want you, everybody line up against the mirror. And then I'm like, just do it. I'm just tired. Just do it.
But got your HR voice.
And I mean, I was like fed up. And so I said, here's what you guys are going to do. Everybody turn around and face the mirror. And they're kind of like, okay. And they did it. And I said, you guys are going to sit there and you're going to look at yourself and you're going to smile for 15 seconds on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, go. And everybody did it. And then everybody started laughing. They just started cracking up. And I knew that they weren't going to get past 5 minutes. And I said, you're not done yet. And now it's like, at least make it to 10. And everybody's howling in laughter at this point because it's the dumbest thing that they've ever done. But you know what it did is it changed the chemistry in their brain. And I said, guys, listen, you all are keep coming up to me telling me how bad everything is in your relationship. Did you just notice that we all were able to have fun together for just 10 seconds? I said, y'all are still laughing. It's like a minute into this, right? I said, I promise you, you're going to have a great rest of the day because you just did something that was out of the norm. I said, you're not into this, getting into the weeds and crabbing and growling at each other. I said, now is the time, right now, that we can unanimously agree to appreciate one another because we're now in a place where we can do it. So let's work hard to like have each other's backs and not all of this constant behind. If he says something that steps out of line and you don't like it, politely tell him. And if he notices that you're not doing something that you're supposed to do, fix it. But you know what? We're only trying to do this to each other to make each other better. I said, can we actually agree on that? And everybody did. But I took advantage of the moment because I knew that the brain chemistry was changing. And for like a week, everybody got along. And it was just amazing. But, he didn't want to continue building people up that way. And I'm like, well, then you're part of the problem there, Schnookums. I don't know what to tell you.
And that's it right there, is sometimes the big boss is part of the problem.
But that's not the subject of our show. Today is burnout. But what it did for a week is it actually got us out of that constant, we feel like we have to fight everybody for the week. And he's like, this has been the greatest week ever. And I said, well, maybe we should start every Monday like this, And, we all stand in the mirror and try and see if we can, how long we can go before we start losing it, right? But it was a difference. It made a huge difference in the day. So, but that's the point, is that, we took a moment to appreciate something. And in this case, it was humor, and it was different. Nobody expected it coming. And it was actually really fun. I mean, I couldn't stop laughing, and I knew what the outcome was going to be. And it was a blast, and it was completely, he said, well, we don't have, a budget to do, team building events I can't afford to bring pizza in all the time. I said, that's not what they're asking for. They're just asking to get away from all of this strife. That's what they're asking for. Let's figure out how we can give that to them. And so that helps out significantly with burnout, is just exercising that appreciation, whether that means that when you guys are sitting around doing your team building, you guys tell each other what you're most appreciative of each other. That helps out a lot. Throw out a random comment to somebody. He's like, everybody, I don't know if it probably doesn't happen over in Switzerland, but there's something that's happening here in the South. And I hear it more and more and more every year. And when, somebody, you go through a drive-through or something like that, and you say, oh, thank you very much, I appreciate it. And somebody else says, well, I appreciate you.
Oh,
yeah, it's really neat. It's a kind of this neat thing that's happening. I don't know if it happens in the rest of the country in the US or not, but it's happening around in this area. And you hear more and more people saying, I appreciate you. And some of them just call it out. Pay for somebody's coffee, bring coffee in, to do something that would allow somebody else to get some form of joy without you requiring anything back. Those are the kinds of things that help navigate people through burnout. Moving, taking care of yourself, being appreciative helps.
All of those things are helpful. And I love that mirror story. And I'm thinking of places where I would like to install a full-length mirror, because that's like a really useful tip. And really just the stepping back and laughing is important. And
Yep.
I love the idea of appreciating people, truly appreciating people.
Yep.
A couple of years ago, I did this little experiment with my siblings, where we all posted on Facebook saying, like this post and I'll say something that I like about you. And I'm a bit of a collector, right? I have so many friends on Facebook that I have never met in real life. And I just know them through social media. And I posted that, and then I went, crap, what am I going to do with one of these people that I don't know well, likes the post. I'm gonna have to say nice. Like, I really like your cover photo. And so probably 100 people did it. And I had to come up with something that I liked about each one of them. And there were some people that I literally had no clue. And so I started scouring their profile, and I learned so much about them.
Yeah.
And so then I would say, oh, you give great advice, or, you really take care of your aging parents or whatever. And the thing is that we did it with the goal of making other people feel better. But
Yep.
by the end, I was on this like high, like, oh my gosh, this has been so much fun for me to realize how incredible all of my Facebook friends are.
Yep.
And it really made a difference. And in the workplace, sometimes we can get bogged down in the never-ending battles. I used to go to battle regularly with finance because I was in charge of headcount, and they were in charge of budget, and those two things, you
Yeah.
know, and it probably would have been a good exercise if someone had said to me, okay, take your three foes in finance and figure out what you like about each one and what makes each one of those a good person. And if I had like scoured their Facebook pages or whatever to find out what it was about them that made them a great person, it probably would have changed my attitude a little bit. And I think this is one of the reasons why it's so important to get to know people as humans and not just as the person that is making it difficult for my headcount report to line up because the budgets don't match, and we need to move this person to this cost center, and that
Yeah. Well,
that's
I'm
not
going
a
to give you, no, it's not. And I'm going to give you guys something else that you can use too. So, now if you're in this environment right now to where you don't have people that you can, the only way that you've got contact is through Zoom or whatever, media video channel that you got going on, or, you might be working from home, or you might be, down half staff at your physical location, or something like that. So one of the things that you can do to also exercise appreciation, and this is more at the micro level for you, is get a mason jar, and you can cut up squares of paper. And so when you run into something that you appreciate, write it down, stick it in the jar. It's a gratitude jar. Just list something that you're grateful for. That could be an individual, it could be a conversation, it could be you're just grateful that you've got a job right now, you're grateful that your bank account is constantly getting replenished, bi-weekly or semi-monthly or whatever. And those things tend to add up. And then what you do is pick a time of the year when you're not feeling like you're having a good day or something like that, dump that jar out and start reading all the things that you're grateful for. It just changes that brain chemistry. And part of the changing of the brain chemistry is what will help adjust and help you guys get through, so you're not facing that burnout. It's just changing the brain chemistry.
And as an HR manager, one of the things you can encourage your employees to do is to A, do that, and B, for managers to let people know when they've done something
Yes.
well. And anytime you get an email from a client that says, hey, just want to let you know Brenda was awesome, forward that to the person that they're talking about.
Celebrate it.
That, and if you get something from a client saying, hey, Brenda, you're awesome, forward that to your boss and say, hey, FYI, and take the time to compliment people around you when they do good things. So often we think that feedback has to be this formal whatever, and I'm not your manager, so I can't tell you. But golly, just, after you made everybody stand in front of the mirror, for someone to say, Brenda, that was really fun. That's what we're talking about here. And those things can make a huge difference in how people do things. And if you can point out something specific, that's even better. And you can really work to make it a nice environment. And it's that cultural monitoring, I mean, that sounds bad, but
Well, no,
you're
it's that nurturing.
nurturing is better.
Nurturing.
Nurturing your culture and making an effort to recognize, oh my gosh, everyone is getting burned out. So what can I do to make it better?
Yeah.
How can I help from an employee relations standpoint? Just not making it a formal program, but just casually mentioning to people, hey, that was a really great idea, or, thanks so much, or I learned something from your presentation today. And it's it's just a really great way to make you feel better, because as long as you're being sincere, those things are helpful for you and for that person to feel better, and to allow work again to be an escape from this difficult world situation that we're in. Have it be a little bit of an escape. Have it be a place where people can go, they got to work. This is not a party. You're getting paid, you got to work, but it can be a nice environment to work in. And if you're consistently giving people positive feedback, when something negative happens and you need to say, hey, that was inappropriate, they're going to be much more willing to take it than if the only time you ever talk to them. I mean, this is one thing when people ask me why I chose Evil HR Lady, and I say it's because when you show up in your manager's office and the HR lady is sitting there, you already know how the conversation is going, because they never bring in HR to tell you you're doing a great job. It's always you're going on a PIP or you're going to be fired, So when you see HR sitting there, it's bad. And
usually something has happened.
Something has happened, and we need to flip that. So that, I mean, we still got to be there when something bad has happened, and that's not a job we can pawn off on somebody else.
Right.
But what if it was, if I see you, you might just be there to say, hey, I heard some feedback about how you have done this really great job. I just wanted to tell you thanks for working here. That person's going home, and if they had their resume all ready to send out, they're not going to do it. I mean, those types of things can boost your retention. It's not just about being nice. It's good business. It's good business.
So appreciation goes a long way. And so we are going to start wrapping this up. It has been an interesting morning. As Mercury in retrograde accounted for our yet again technical issues. Oh my gosh.
It's a nice way of saying it.
It is. It is. Nice. So we appreciate you guys joining us. Matter of fact, the subscribership is growing every week, which makes us excited. We see more and more of you watching. While we're here live, we do appreciate you guys. We'd love to hear what your questions are. Feel free to go ahead and enter your comments in and questions, and we will address them throughout the week. You're welcome to go ahead and ask questions while we're here on live on the show at any time. If you agree with what we're saying, great. We'd love to hear that. So, but before we hop off, because we're about ready to, Suzanne, can you let everybody know how they can find you?
Yes, you can find me at evilhrlady.org or my Facebook group, also called Evil HR Lady. Those are the two easiest places to find me, but I'm also on Twitter and LinkedIn, and I'm happy to connect anywhere because I like to collect people.
And again, I'm Brenda Neckvaldy. You can find me over on LinkedIn. You can find me at the Next Gen Women in HR group. I've got we have 160 members now, which is fantastic. We just started this group in January, so we're growing really, really fast. They're a really great group of people. I certainly enjoy having them around. And you can find me on my webpage over at bestpractices.org. And of course, you can always reach out to either one of us at our webpage at therealhrshow.com. So we will see you guys next week. Not sure if we'll have our highfalutin production going or if it will just be a simple Zoom. We'll find out.
Join us. That's the mystery.
You guys have a great day.
Bye.